These boots have popped up on my social media ads nonstop. And when I say pop up, I mean like literally like every third ad I saw was about these boots. And it's not just me, because my DMs have been flooded with people requesting for me to cut these boots in half because they're pushing these so hard. And it's not just because they're spending tens of thousands of dollars each month getting these in front of people's eyes, but it's because they're making some pretty wild and bold claims about these boots. So we're gonna cut them in half, run it through our test to really see if this boot lives up to those bold claims, or is it just another case of a brand with a big budget making outlandish claims to sell a subpar product to people that don't know any better? So who is Portland Leather? Because this might help us understand their business strategy and what they're doing. Well, Portland Leather Goods was founded by Curtis Matsko, a self-described $100 million a year entrepreneur, a serial entrepreneur, a digital marketing expert, and a riveting storyteller, according to his LinkedIn. And in 2015, this was all started in a garage, a startup company, you guessed it, in Portland, Oregon. And they started making handmade leather journals, selling them on Etsy, and within a year, they were in the top 10 Etsy companies. Then later they expanded to bags, and that's what really propelled them, as far as I understand, into serious growth in the business that they are today. And in 2016, they expanded into a big warehouse in Portland, Oregon, and their whole business strategy seems to be this direct-to-consumer model where they cut out the middleman, no retail shops, put the savings directly onto you. And that seemed to be their big marketing strategy and really driving those prices down and positioning their products as the cost leader in the market. Then in 2021, they started designing boots, and in July of 2022, they started Patina, which is this brand, a sister company to the Portland Leather Goods, and it operates under a very similar direct-to-consumer style of operations. We make the boots and shoes you want, but for cheaper. And to put in perspective how fast they've grown and how funded they are, they went from selling $0 in boots to $10 million in just 8 months. And Portland Leather Goods was recently recognized as one of the fastest growing fashion brands in 2022 by SimilarWeb.com, placing 8th globally, just one spot behind the celebrity-driven brand Skims. And the brand recently reached over $100 million in sales and is 100% self-funded, with a pace to make over 2 million bags in 2023. And a lot of that explosive growth and popularity is all due to that ungodly amount of money that they're spending on advertising, putting their products in front of people's eyes all day, every day, which is all good. There's nothing wrong with that. That's the modern way of doing business and advertising. The only issue I have, and apparently a lot of you guys have the same issue, is the very bold claims that feel really dishonest, bordering on lies. So what are these claims? Well, let's just let Portland Leather run their ads and do the talking.
They're full grain artisan boots. You're probably like, oh yeah, for $300. No. For $128.
$457 leather boots, so you don't have to.
So I saw these premium leather boots I wanted on Instagram, but they were way too expensive. So you're gonna assume that the more expensive one is the better one, right? That's the scam. Of course you think you're getting more, but get this, almost perfect leather for just $98.
Stop overpaying, you're an idiot if you do.
Now, this may sound like a cheesy sales pitch, a woman saying boots make you look better, right? But the truth is, you know it too.
So after seeing those ads, the biggest claims that stood out to me is that they're better than $300 boots, they're better than $475 boots, they're better than $595 boots, they're the best boots you can buy, they're artisan made, $500 boots are a scam, you're an idiot if you spend $595, and boots make you look better, which is true. So now I'll start putting that to the test with the leather first. So is this leather better than $300, $400, $500, $600 boots? Not even close. Most boots, their thickness of leather is 2 to 3 millimeters thick. This is only 1.6 millimeters thick, so basically sneaker leather. But it is a nubuck leather, which means they just sanded the top surface of the grain to give it that microfiber look, so it does have the grain in it. So it's not terrible leather, but it's definitely not $300 or $400, $500, $600 leather. It's $100 leather. And if this was a more expensive leather, it'd be thicker. It'd probably come from one of the more reputable tanneries like Horween, Wicked and Craig, some of the Italian tanneries. And most of the time when people are using nubuck leather, it's because it comes from a hide that had a lot of flaws in it, and they sand it to remove those, but also to give you this little microfiber look. So channeling my inner Mari, Portland Leather says that this leather is as good as more expensive boots. Well, the leather analysis determined that that was a lie. Next to the inside, and this is actually pretty surprising for a $100 boot because this is a real leather lining. It is a really, really cheap leather. It's 1 millimeter thick. The lining is just kind of all over the place. It's bunched in places. It's loose in a lot of places. It's heavily sanded. You can see all the flaws and nicks and little areas where they sanded through the grain. It's a really cheap lining leather, but it is leather, which really surprised me. I thought for sure it was gonna be fake because we burned it just to double check, and it is real leather. So it's far from the worst leather I've seen on the inside of a boot, but it's even further from the best lining leather we've seen. More expensive boots are gonna have less stretch, less bunching, less issues and holes and scratch marks and less foaminess through and through. But honestly, for $100, I did not expect it to be a full leather upper and a full leather lining. So back to the Mari, Portland Leather says these are the best boots you can buy. Well, the lining analysis determined that that was a lie. And then next to the one thing that we know is super cheap, and that's the outsole. Because this was made to look like the Vibram Christie wedge, but it's not. It's just a knockoff made from a really cheap EVA foam. So it's gonna wear out a lot faster because it's only 40 short A. Chunks can easily be taken off of it, especially if you're using these in more rough terrain like rocks or anything other than carpet. It's not gonna grip the same as rubber. It's gonna wear a lot faster. It's gonna absorb stuff like oil and grease and grime, but it is gonna be really squishy underfoot because of how soft it is. So once again, giving it the Mari, the Portland Leather says these are as good as the other boots. They're the best boots in the world. Well, the outsole analysis determined that that was a lie. Now to what might be the actual saving grace of this boot, the construction. Because looking at this, it's clearly made to look like it's a Goodyear welt construction, which is one of the strongest ways to make a boot, because instead of just glue holding your boot together, you actually have stitching sewing the upper to the welt to the outsole, and so you have multiple points where it's held together really, really strongly with really thick thread and glue. And one way to tell to see if this Portland Leather or this patina boot is actually Goodyear welted is that test we talk about, just slightly pulling the upper away from the welt. If you see stitches, it's probably a Goodyear welt. If you see glue like this one, it's cemented. So 99% sure it's cemented. Portland Leather says these are artisan built like the more expensive boots. Well, the welt analysis determined that that was a lie. But there is one thing that I'm really holding out hope for this boot, because this looks like it has a full-length leather midsole. And if it does, for $100 to have leather lining, leather upper, even though it's a fake leather welt, having a full-length leather midsole is pretty impressive. Is it $300, $400, $500, $600 worthy? No, not even close, because you see leather midsoles in Thursdays that are like $200. But I'm just holding out hope for Portland Leather. So let's cut these things in half, check out the internal components, see if anything else on the inside is better than what it seems on the outside. So let's cut them in half. All right, we got it cut in half, and thank you guys for supporting Moctober. It's my favorite series, that and the Metusa series. So let me know what other Moctos you want us to cut apart, and what other Metusa, made in the United States of America, boots you want us to cut apart, and we'll start ranking them on the board and stuff. So let's see what's inside. So what's on the inside of the patina boots by Portland Leather Goods? Well, not the guts of the more expensive boots. It's just all cheap, bottom of the barrel materials. Cheap insole, cheap sneaker lasting material, compressed cardboard. It does have the steel shank, but the toe stiffener is a really fragile recycled junk. The heel counter is that same recycled junk that just kind of falls apart. And the biggest crime of all is this leather midsole is fake. I've seen people do a fake leather welt, and you can kind of make excuses for it. Well, it seals it off. You don't want like stuff collecting in there with a cemented boot. It's all just for looks. You hear that, but I've never once seen a fake leather midsole. And to me, that feels pretty shady and dishonest. There's no visual value to it, really. There's no like functional value or intrinsic value. It's all seemingly just to make this boot look higher quality than it actually is, with none of the substance. So now to the questions. Is this boot better than the $300 boots? No. Is this boot better than the $475 boots? No. Is this boot better than the $500 boots? No. Is it better than the $595 boots? No. Is the boot the best? No, it's terrible. It's a terrible boot. Is it artisan made? No, these are clearly made in huge batches. There's no real artistry or handmade thing to this, especially compared to any other boot brand. So it's definitely not artisan handmade. And are you an idiot to spend $595 on a pair of boots? It's a fair critique, if we're being honest, but at least you know what you're getting. And even though a lot of people might not get the full value out of it, you do get what you pay for most of those cases. What about the claim $500 boots are a scam? Well, if a $500 boot is a scam, and what would you call a $100 boot saying it's better than $500 boots when it's literally just a cheap $100 boot? Mega scam, super scam. So how much are they actually worth? You know, maybe 100 to 150 tops. They're definitely nothing more than that. So Portland leather, you're busted. And instead of telling people the truth about your product, you intentionally misled people into buying a boot under the assumption that it was higher quality because that's what you told them it was. And I think that's really dishonest, and I would be really upset if I bought a pair of these. I'd want my money back. And it's not that they're bad boots for the price, but when you promise your customers one thing and deliver another, that's just bad business to me, especially when you've made over $100 million in a year and you claim you're this marketing wizard and that you're this serial entrepreneur. Is there not enough wiggle room in that $100 million to tell the truth to your following and make honest products sold in an honest way? Well, how do you think they made $100 million? It's by being this digital marketing expert, telling these riveting stories regardless of the truth. So take what you want from this one, but I think the big lesson to be learned is one of the oldest lessons of all time. If something seems too good to be true, it probably is too good to be true. And that's why I love doing this job, because these big multi-million-dollar brands are making a fortune off the backs of people who trust them and depend on their products. And that drives me nuts. And I love exposing them for their bull. Now, my favorite test, let's see how easy these are to rip apart. At least they're somewhat well cemented, but not cemented well enough. Not great. So let me know what you guys think and your experiences in these, and I would avoid these unless you're fine just getting a $100 boot, but you can get a lot better boot for $150, $200. Use your money in better places, and Portland leather, make better boots. Oh, and we forgot to rank it on the Moctober board. Right now on this year's board, we only have the Wested up there. So how does this rank? Well, even though all the issues we talked about, it's cheaper than the Wested and it's built basically the same with slight edge in a couple places. So I'm putting it right above the Wested, but just barely, just squeaked above Wested. And as for the overall 3-year board, here's how it places. And thank you guys again for all your support. See ya.